and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public informational, nonpartisan service program designed to get the public acquainted with the candidates vying for the 2024 primary election local races, which include Salem Mayor, Salem City Council, Marion County Commissioner, and Polk County Commissioner. These interviews come to you through the producers at Capital Community Media, collaboration on questions and moderators from the Association of University Women and the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties. All candidates for these races were invited, and all but one chose to participate. Candidates did not receive the questions ahead of time, which were prepared by the League of Women Voters. Candidates were asked to prepare a 2-minute opening statement addressing their background and qualifications for the office, as well as a 2-minute closing remarks. My name is Toma Cadu from the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties, and I'd like to introduce Shane Matthews, who's running for Salem City Council, Ward 3. Welcome, candidate.
Thank you.
Matthews. We look forward to your opening statement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Did I do that now?
You sure do.
All right. So again, like you said, my name is Shane Matthews. I've lived in Salem almost my entire life. I grew up here. And for me, it's really felt like over the last several years, we just continually are eroding. We're just getting worse and worse, and we're just not progressing the way we really should. And a lot of that comes down to the same things that we're all feeling. I rarely talk to someone that disagrees where the problems lie. We have a crime issue that big and small we're seeing kind of just continue to grow. I as a personal citizen in the community, I know that my mail gets stolen about once a month. I can almost clockwork it. And I hear it regularly. And then on a bigger crime, we've had multiple violent situations, everything from the Bush Park shooting recently to a 15-year-old in Northeast Salem just last year. And there was actually a murder just this morning over in West Salem at the homeless camps. And so it's a problem, and we're not getting better. We're only getting worse right now. Kind of second tier to that, I hear a lot about homelessness, and it's something I feel too, is that we just have a system that we're not really making the progress we should. We spent $23 million almost last year on our homeless effort, and we just didn't really see $23 million worth of results. And so we need to get better solutions that have more impactful actually momentum behind them, and actually makes a big difference in the reason that someone's homeless, not just the fact that they don't have a home, but what's actually causing their homelessness. And so reprioritizing some of those I guess processes we do right now. And then while there's several other things I'm running on, kind of my final one really looks at how we're efficiently spending our money right now. And right now we obviously know that there's a lot of debate on what our budget looks like and what needs to happen. And I think one of the things that needs to happen is we need to go back and look and say, what do we need to prioritize? What do we need to work on? And is our money working well for us right now?
Thank you for that background information. Now let's give you an opportunity to address the questions we've developed for today's interview.
Yeah.
We're going to start with the fact that many residents may not understand the role of council members. Why should they be interested in this race?
Yeah. I would be one of those people just even a few years ago, and I didn't realize how much power an individual person could have, but certainly a group could have just in our community, in a local government. A lot of us get caught up in national things. I talk about couch complainers a lot when I do speaking events, and that's the people we all have in our lives, people that are every time you talk to them, they tell you about all the things that are wrong with the local or the state or the national government, but they don't really get that involved. And they just know the problems, but they aren't really part of the solution. And the truth is, when we're looking at national problems and what a lot of our news media covers, it's not stuff that we can, on a local basis, have a huge control over in your own personal opinion, your own life. But from a local standpoint, you can show up to a city council meeting and have the biggest impact you've ever seen, because you can change someone's vote. You can change the entire direction that a council meeting is going just because you share your opinion on something. And so that's why you should be engaged. That's why you should be looking. That's why you should be watching. So yeah, that's what it is. As far as what is a counselor's role, a counselor's role is to carry forward what the community wants. And so I've really inundated myself since September in trying to be as active and as knowledgeable about the things that we all know are problems, but to know why are they problems. And so I've been out with multiple different community organizations and multiple different departments trying to make sure that I have as good a grasp on that as possible, so that when I move forward in representing the city and my ward, that I move forward with what their objectives are, not what my objectives are. So
Now let's explore how you work on communication and outreach to local groups and institutions in order to improve collaboration concerning shared issues and problems.
yeah. Part of it, I mean, a big part of this job is the collaboration aspect, and not always is that done well or easily. And I don't know that, just generally, I don't want to talk about historically, but it seems like we do have some big disconnects when it comes to that collaboration aspect of this job and what our current council is able to do with the other partners, like our county partners or our state partners. But even beyond that, as far as how do you make those connections, I've been making those connections my whole life, so partially. But I'm in real estate now, and prior to real estate, I worked at the hospital. And my job there was with the community benefit. And the community benefit, one of their roles is to basically help determine what the needs are of the community, and then make sure that the hospital is moving that direction. And so I was really involved in that entire process every single 4 years of figuring out where does our community see our needs. And so I'm really used to being able to go out and meet with these organizations, meet with kind of people that are within our community and that have opinions and have the right objectives to be able to get to a better place. And so as far as this role, that'll be something I'm fairly used to.
Thank you for that. The City Council has acknowledged homelessness as a critical issue in our community. What are some new proposals addressing the needs of the unsheltered?
Yeah. So we focus right now on a housing first model when it comes to homelessness. And the whole idea behind it is flawed, because the idea behind a housing first model is that you are houseless or you are homeless by definition because you lack a home or you lack a house. And so if we provide you shelter, then we've fixed your problem. You are no longer homeless. Well, that doesn't really work that way, right? I think most of us know that really, and while there are separate cases, for the most part, somebody finds themselves in homelessness because they have a secondary or a primary issue. It'd be potentially it's addiction, mental health, a trauma in their past, and sometimes it is just finances and they just need the assistance. But oftentimes it's one of those other three areas. And so when we do a housing first model that focuses on finding the housing aspect, but it doesn't prioritize that primary reason for the homelessness, we end up just creating a cycle of tent to micro shelter to apartment back to tent, because we haven't actually fixed the primary reason that's causing someone's homelessness. And so we need to pivot. I mentioned earlier how much we kind of spent previously last year on our homeless effort and not seeing the results. We need to pivot and start really focusing on that first priority. What is the first priority that's causing a homelessness? And let's start focusing on that and putting some accountability and some steps that help to get someone actually stabilized, not just in the short term, but in the long term.
Thank you. Moving on to building codes. How have city building codes been altered, especially concerning the permitting process? And what exactly is middle housing?
So the permitting process and just the planning as a whole, I keep hearing this, right? So this is something that I am in real estate, and I've been meeting with different builders and different developers as well as city officials, and it seems like we have a slowdown at some point where the permitting process just becomes almost stagnant. When you're trying as a builder, as a developer, to get something to progress through, there's not real clear objectives. So I've heard a lot, and I try my best not to say through this process that I've think or I've heard. I do my best to try to say I've seen, but this is one that I've really heard. I haven't seen it as much firsthand, just because I've been, this has been since September, and so I haven't followed a project fully through yet. But I continually hear that once it gets to a planning and a permitting process, that it just slows down and that there aren't real clear objectives, that we have codes, and that even if a project meets a code, that the city is stepping outside of that and doing things that are called struggling for the word, when you're in law, and it's precedents. They're utilizing precedents as opposed to actual code. And I, again, have heard this. It's something I'm looking more and more into. I think that building appropriately and responsibly is important, but we are in a housing shortage, and there's just no way around it. And so we need to find ways to be a city that gets to yes on progress in multiple ways, instead of it just being how do we, or why are we slowing this process down, and where is the delay? Somewhere there's a funnel, and so figuring out where that's at is important.
And getting back to about what middle housing is.
Oh, yes, middle housing, yeah. So middle housing, I think it's hard for everyone because we talk a ton about affordable housing, and that means something different to everyone. To me, affordable housing means that people in our community can afford to live here, and that's something that we've lost. And so when we talk about middle housing, I think it is the idea that the non-subsidized housing, because when we build this by the city standards, this affordable housing is really a subsidized housing, which, the problem with that cycle is you're implying that our workers should make less, therefore we need to subsidize their actual living situation because we're not paying them enough here to be able to live here. That's a problem. We shouldn't have to subsidize people. So middle housing really is building that middle section of housing that people can purchase, and ideally being able to fill some of that gap, because we lack middle housing drastically. We don't have very much of it right now. I mean, it's where you see our biggest gaps. And so when you're lacking this middle housing, and you aren't producing enough, then you're just going to continue to squeeze that middle housing, and there not be enough for the population that is not necessarily needing to be subsidized, but may not be completely in the upper echelon of finances. So,
thank you for that. What are your top priorities and strategies outlined in Salem's recently adopted Climate Action Plan that will increase climate change resiliency for the communities of Salem?
Yeah. The Climate Action Plan I don't know it super well, in truth. I've read through it in preparation for a different interview I did. And so I'm trying to be as educated on it as I can, because I'm starting from behind there. But what I am interested with it is there was recently a climate action meeting, a council, and they met and they compared a Tampa Bay city with Salem, which apparently was in some way similar. That was kind of what the whole report was about. And it was sort of determined that through that, and I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but that the cost was going to be extremely expensive for us for them to be able to meet their carbon zero plan that they had put in place, which is similar to ours. The cost was so explosive that it was clear to me that wasn't going to be practical from our cost standpoint for us to be able to accomplish as a city by ourselves. So I think we should all be striving towards environmental solvency and being able to not to be as carbon neutral as possible. But at the end of the day, we also are going to need some assistance here, because if we're going to ever meet that kind of threshold that we're shooting to meet, which I think is a great goal, we're going to need some outside funds, and the city's not going to be able to fund it themselves. So whether that comes from state or somewhere else, I don't know. But I think it's great to have the goal, but we definitely need to find some practical ways to get the funding to be able to meet these, because I don't see how we're meeting our goal with the funding we have right now.
Are there any priorities or strategies that are particularly top of mind for you within that plan at this point?
I'm learning more and more about it. So I know that the current plan talks a lot about utilizing electricity. I've also heard that there's renewable natural gas out there. And so again, I'm playing from behind in this scenario. So I'm not as educated on the different options as far as to getting to that point. So as far as me bringing the strategies, I'm not the guy to bring the strategies, but I'm definitely the guy to say, hey, what is the most practical of these strategies to accomplish our goal? Because that's what I am. I'm a guy that says, here's the goal. How do we get there? And let's figure out that part. So, thank
you. When you research issues important to the city, how do you prepare, and what resources do you use?
When I research, say it one more time, would you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
When you research issues that are important to the city, how do you prepare to do that research? And what resources do you use?
Yeah. Biggest one is talking to people. So the two things, priorities for me is one, hearing what the city feels or whoever the impacted people are, but then also what the community feels. And so the resource I use is just people. If there's something that I have a question about, or if there's something specific that the city is working on, it's a matter of having that face-to-face meeting with somebody so that I can say, explain it to me. Let's go through the process and then tell me why this is important. So people is what I use predominantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. What decisions should be made about our city infrastructure features?
As far as like roads and everything else. When you say what decisions?
Well, maybe what are decisions that you would like to see made?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we have some major issues within our community, and infrastructure is a huge one, and we need to obviously continue to prioritize and continue to ensure that we have good roads, that we have good sewers, that we are built in a way that can sustain us for the future. But we have some more pressing issues at this moment, honestly. And not to say that those are not pressing, they absolutely are. But I've kind of mentioned them. We have a crime issue. We have a homeless problem. We have an issue with our spending overall. And so I think at this point, we're at a critical mass moment where we have to prioritize some of these more pressing matters. And not to say those aren't pressing by any means, but when we start looking at where our funds going and how are we prioritizing, frankly, we need to focus on some of these issues that are human issues that are and safety issues. So.
Thank you, Shane Matthews. This is your opportunity to share your 2-minute closing remarks about your goals for office if you're elected and anything else you'd wish to share.
Yeah. So like I say, I grew up in this community, but I think if you were to talk to almost anyone from my high school or from any of my other schools, this is not a position they'd ever see me in. This is not something I was ever supposed to run for, is the reality. I was an at-risk kid, and I barely graduated high school. But the truth is it has taught me a ton because I was in a completely different life. I was in a completely different threshold of where I was going and who I was supposed to be, or what it looked like who it looked like I was going to be. I'm probably supposed to be in my mom's basement or in jail, is probably the truth. But the reality is it through multiple different mentorship things and everything else, and through the help of a DA here in Marion County, I ended up on a different trajectory that has really opened my eyes to representing more people. Because I've been everything from the at-risk kid to the young dad on public assistance, or trying to buy your first house, or now being a business owner where you can help and actually help support others. And so because of that, I guess that's what I want to try to express, is that my goal is not to carry my particular opinions forward. My goal is to carry forward what the community wants. And so I want to be as available to people as I can. My personal number is on almost every marketing thing I send out, because I want people to be able to reach me. And I want to make sure that when I go to council or when I have something that I have to vote on, that I hear your voice first, because if I'm hearing mine or I'm hearing a different politician's, that's where we have a problem, because I'm only really supposed to be representing the people that are in my city. So that's it.
Thank you, Shane Matthews, for this interview today and for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Capital Community Media for their extensive technology and producer skills used to create this program. And thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties for the design and preparation of the program. And thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become a more informed voter. For more local, state, and national, nonpartisan voter information on candidates and ballot issues, visit vote411.org after April 15th, when candidate data will be posted. You have until April 30th to register to vote or to make any changes in your registration. Ballots will be mailed out on May 1st and will be accepted if postmarked before or on May 21st. Elections matter. Remember to vote, because your vote counts.